Agotevach, this is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Nun Dalin. And all the learning should be an incredible zchus Rafua Shalima for Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva b'siyata d'shemaya. The incredible Koyach HaTorah should bring Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva a complete Rafua Shalima. And we pick it up from the top line of Nun Dalid Amid Aleph, in middle of a lengthy discussion, but we're going to pick it up with a raya. Tanya Kavose de Rava, a brisa which is going to be a raya to Rava. Ish prat lekatan, an ish comes to exclude a child, a katan, asher yishkav is ishes aviv, that lies with the wife of his father, mashma, which infers bein ishes aviv shehi imay, every form of ishes aviv, whether it's the wife of his father, which happens to be his mother, bein ishes aviv shalai imay, whether it's ishes aviv, which is not his mother, imay she'enai ishes aviv minayin. But how do we know his mother, who's not the wife of his father? How do we know? Talmud Loimar Ervas Aviv Gila, says the Torah uncovered his father's nakedness. Mufna. This part of the pasuk is extra. Mufna, literally, it's free. Lahakish, to compare v'ladain mimenu, and to learn from it Gezeira Shava. What is the Gezeira Shava? Mais yumasu biskila. Mais yumasu means skila. Ataymer biskila ino ela ba'achas mikol misas amuras ba'ta'ira. How do you know it's skila? Maybe it's one of the other misas. Nemer kan demehem bam. It says over here the blood is upon them. And nemer la'oiv v'yadaini. And by the sorcery, the avira of oiv v'yadaini, it says demehem bam. Balahalon, just like over there, it's biskila. Afkan, it is as well biskila. So part number one says the Raisa that the Misa that the one will be machayiv is biskila. Oynesh shaman. From here we learn the punishment. As haraminayim. From where do we learn that the Torah warns against such avera? Tamalai mar erva zavicha loisigalei erva zavicha. This is Zu'eshes Avicha, the wife of your father. How do you know it means the wife of your father? Maybe it actually means Ervas Avicha. Maybe it means one having relations, a male with his father, sodomy. Nemer kan Ervas Avicha lo sikalev. Nemer lahalon, the first white line. Ervas Avicha gila. Malhalon, just like over there, be'ishas akasim. Just like over there, it's referred to a form of ishas, a man and a woman. So too, Afkana, the second white line, be'ishas akasim. So must be referring to the wife of the father, umashma. And this infers, bein ishes aviv she'ima, bein ishes aviv she'ena ima, whichever form of mother it is, whether it's married to the father or not. But ima she'ena ishes aviv minayin tamaloymar ervas avich imecha loisigali. The exact same Shaklavataria says the Gemara. Here you only know the warning that the Torah equates a woman who is not the wife of your father like your mother. Excuse me. One more time. We know that the Torah equates the two, whether the mother is the wife of the father or not. But Einish Minayin Nemer can ever take a losikalev and Nemer Lahalan Ervas Aviv Gila. Ma Bazara say Hakos of Imoy. Sheneshes Aviv Ki Imoy Sheeshes Aviv. Just like when it comes to Azara, they're both the same. Whether it's an Imoy, which is Eshes of the wife of your father, whether it's a mother who's not. Af Bainesh, I say Kos Imoy Sheneshes Aviv. Ki Imoy Sheeshes Aviv. It's going to be the same thing. Part 2 of the Brisa. Continues the Brisa. Imchahi, says the Brisa. The pasuk says, she is your mother. What is that to you? Misham imo yata mechayvoi v'yata mechayvoi misham eshes ahav. You're not chayv because she's the wife of your father. Says the Gemara v'Rabbanon. So that was 3 parts of the Brisa referring to Shita number 1. Just to keep track over here, we're bringing a raya to Rava. And we're in the middle of a long and lengthy brisa. We began part 1, Ish, part 2, Ainesh, part 3, Imai, part 4, Ainesh, and now we're continuing with V'Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, the Rabbanan, who holds that if one is together with a woman who is the father's wife, the halacha is there's an extra chiyuv for being together with one's father's wife. V'Rabbanan ervas avicha mamash. According to the Rabbanan, the fact that the pasuk says ervas avicha teaches us literally that it refers to not to the wife, but rather the actual erva of the father, an act of sodomy, an act of a man being together with the father. Says the Gemara, hi mi ve'es zachar nafka. Says Gemara, wait, but that we already know from, there's already an isser that what ve'es zachar, that a man can't be together with another man. Answers the Gemara, l'chayavai alav shtayim. There's two isurim, that one is over. One, the stam isser being together, ve'es zachar, a male being together with a male. And isser number two, being together with ervas avicha. Continues the Gemara. Rav Yehuda. This is like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda. Nachri abal aviv. Chayiv shtayim. A nachri, a guy who's together with his father, is chayiv for two yisurim. Habal achei aviv. Similarly, someone who's together with his uncle as well, chayiv shtayim, is over two. So Amar Rava, says Rava, Mistavra, Milsa, Rav Yehuda. What is this case of Rav Yehuda? Be Yisrael, be Shoygeg, be Carbon. The din of Rav Yehuda refers to a case of a Yid who did it be Shoygeg, and it refers to the din of a Carbon. It shows us that if a Yid be Shoygeg is together with his father, an act of sodomy, male with male, what's the halacha? The halacha is chayiv shtayim. Excuse me, the halacha is chayiv a carbon. But what type of carbon? Shtayim. Two carbonis. V'hayde kamar nachi. But says Rava, but the Brisa said it's a guy. Lishna ma'al yahu. It's just a euphemism. No one wants to talk about Yidin doing such a terrible act. So we say it's a nachri, but really refers to halacha of a Yid. Says the Gemara, because if you're going to tell me nachri mamish, if you're going to tell me it means an actual guy, dinai, my new kitala. What is the halacha? If a guy is over such an act, he is chayiv death. Betray katali katlaslay. What's going on over here? You're going to tell me there's two forms of death? It can't be. Rather, says Rava, what's going on in the Brisa is referring to a yid, and it's referring to bishoygeg, and the shtayim is a carbon. Taninami hachi, I'll bring you a raya. Habal aviv chayiv shtayim, habal achei aviv chayim shtayim. So we see a raya, the Brisa, teaching us the same thing. Ikedi amri, another pshat. The like Rav Yehuda, vikedi amri afilu tema Rav Yehuda. So there are two ways of learning this Brisa. You can say it's Rav Yehuda now, ma'isle bekava chayim remachei aviv. Umachei aviv the korva da aviv, hu achei aviv the brother of the father, which is a korva da aviv, which is a relative of the father, who chayiv shtayim aviv lo koshken. Of course, the father would be the same. And it's going to be the same machlaik as Abaye v'Rava. Mar savarayin sheminadin. That even though it's a kal v'chaymer, and this is a larger sugya, but could kal v'chaymer teach us an einish? Says one opinion, yes. Omar savar ein ein sheminadin. You can't bring a raya from a kal v'chaymer. V'Rabbanan. Azhar Elishes Avim Minalu Nafkalu Eris Ishes Avichalo Sigale. Rav Yehuda, what does he say? Homi Baile Lazar Elishes Aviv La Achar Misoi Rabbanan. Homi say what they call Nafka Eris Avichahi Rabbana Rav Yehuda Homi Baile Misham Ishes Avat Mechaiva Vita Mechaiva Misham Ishes Ish. Ask the Gemara Vanantinan 1 second. But we learned Habal Ishes Av, Chayvala Misham Ishes Av, O Misham Ishes Ish, Bein Bechayav, Bein Lachar Misas Av, Eveloi Polik Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda did not argue. So seemingly Rav Yehuda is maskim that there is considered an act of zinos. Amrabaya, Polik Bebraisa. Says Abaya, we don't find that Rav Yehuda argues in the Mishnah, but he argues in a Braisa. V'Rabbanan. Oynesh ishes aviv lachar misa minalu. Bishlam the Rabbi Yehuda ma'isi loving Sarah Shava. El Rabbanim minalu. Amr l'chahu ervas aviv gila. Demapik la Rabbi Yehuda. The part of Yehuda uses like Zera Shava. Mabkile. The Rabbanim use it in Ula. Oynesh ishes aviv lachar misa. As the punishment of ishes lachar misa. Rabbanim ishes l'imai. Oynesh l'imai she'en ishes aviv minalu. Rav Shisha, Bered Ravidi, Amar Kraim Chai Asa Kasav Li'imai, Sheinesh Aviv, Ki'imai Sheish Aviv. And that is the end of the Braisa. So that's the Raya. As we began, Tani Kavasi to Rava, a little bit of a complicated give and take, but that is part A. We continue before the Mishnah Abal Kalasai. The Mishnah taught us someone is together with the Kalasu, his daughter-in-law. It's also considered Shtayim. One, that it's a daughter-in-law, and two, that it is an act of zinos. Says the Gemara, 1 second. What about the fact that it's the wife of a son? That should be another isser. What is a pachas teaching you? Zui kalasai, zui eshes benoi. It's the same thing. And therefore, it won't be considered two different aveiros, but rather it will be considered one. And we continue with a Mishnah, which we already had in the previous Mishnah, but now we'll elaborate upon them. Habala zachar val behema visha hamivias behema. If a male is together with another male, someone is together with an animal, or a woman brings an animal upon herself, all of these three cases, biskila, all have the punishment of skila. Says the Gemara, Im Adam chayte behema michata. Im Adam chayte behema michata. Ask the Gemara if the person sinned. Is it considered that the animal sinned? But rather because a person stumbled with this animal, therefore the pasuk says that the animal as well should be stoned, something that we learned back in the beginning of this Masechta. We don't want that an animal should be in the market. People shouldn't talk about it, say, oh, that animal, Pliny was stoned because of it. Pliny had relations with that animal and he was chayiv skila. So if the person is chayiv skila, says the Mishnah, the animal is going to be the same. So now says the Gemara, let's delve into these three halachas. The halacha is, again, of mishkav zachar. The halacha is mishkav behema. And the halacha of a woman with mishkav behema. Zachar min olam d'tanu rabbanon ish probably cut. Asher yishkav zachar. Bein gadol bein katan mishkav isha. Malach kasav sheshnei mishkavos isha teaches the Torah that there's two forms of mishkav, two forms of relations that can be had with a woman, both lefanav and me'achayrav, natural and not natural. Amar Rav Yishmael, harei zeh ba l'lamed, you know this teaches us. V'nim salamad. This pasuk is coming to teach something, but it ends up teaching elsewhere. Mois yumasu biskila. Ataymer biskila, you know, Allah. So from here we learn that there's a form of mishkav isha that entails of me'achayrav, which will be the same form of mishkav that will be shaykh by a man. When we look at Rashi for a moment, Rashi spells it out. Says Rashi, 3 lines to the bottom, mishkav isha, shtei mishkaz v'yish v'isha, shavan zelzel chayv v'chol harayis, kedarka, shaloi kedarka. And of course, the form of a bia between a man and a man is going to be from this pasuk called a mishkav. What is going to be the mishkav? The mishkav shaloi kedarka. As Rashi in the last line says, mishkav zachar lo yitzuk kratab shitalan. It's called mishkav zachar shaloi kedarka. Of course, that's the only way a mishkav zachar could have relations. It's come to teach us the abal isha ben kedar ben shloi kedarka chayiv. But here we're going to learn out the same thing is going to be habal zachar will as well be chayiv. Continues the Gemara. Okay, that's the makar for abal zachar. But as we turn over to Nadalim, the Beis asks the Gemara, where do we see the azara? Where do we see the warning? Talmud loymar ve'zachar loysishkav Mishkave Isha, Toeva Yid is a Toeva Laman, if we learn out, Azar L'Sheichev. This is the Azar L'Sheichev, the one that does the act of lying. Azhara L'Nishka Minayin, how about the one that was lied with? Talmud Leimar Lo Yeh Kadesh V'mnei Yisrael, you should not be a Kadesh, which is what? V'aymer V'gam Kadesh, Yeh Haya Be'eretz Isa, V'kechol Te'ivas Agayim Asher Hayrish, V'gaymer Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Kiva Aymer, Ina Yitzarech Hari Aymer, V'zachul L'Sishkav, Mishka Ve'isha, Kari Ba Loi Sishkav, Loi Sishkav. There we learn out that both of the one who did the act of lying, the one that received the act of lying, both of them are included in this azhara, in this warning. That's part one of the Mishnah, that's Mishkav Zachar. Part two of the Mishnah is Behema. Says the Gemara, Benehema, Minalan, where we know the din by Behema. Titana Rabbanim, we learned in a Braisa, Ish Pralika, Tana Shayitin Shechavtai Behema. Says the Taira who sleeps with a Behema. Bein Gedayla, Bein Ketana. Whether it is a Gadol or a Katan, the halacha is going to be the same, whether the animal is a Gadol or a Katan. Mais Yumasu Biskila, Taimer Biskila, Ina Ela Beachas, Vikola Mizamuz Bataira, Nemar Kante Hargum, Nemar Lahaloin, Kisar, Kiharag Tergenu, Malhalim Biskila, Afghan Biskila. We say Malacha Biskila, Lamanu. Oynesh l'shoichev. Again, here we learn out the oynesh l'shoichev, the one who does the act of lying. However, oynesh l'nishkav minalan. Where do we know the oynesh for the nishkav? Says the Gemara. And again, the nishkav here is going to be if someone brings an animal upon themselves. We don't need it for that, as we just had the makar for that. Again, so now we know the punishment. You always need to have both parts. You need to have the einesh, and then following the einesh, you need to have the azara. You need to have the warning of the Torah. How do you know the one who lied with? Should not be the one to lie with. So that's where we see the act of Mishkav Zachar. That's where we see the act of Mishkav Behema. Says the Gemara, Habal Zachar, Vehevi love Zachar. Both one who has relations with a male and one who brings a male upon them. Omer Avavua L'Divi Rabbi Yishmael is going to be Chayiv Shtayim. Again, if one does two different acts, Chadam Iloi Sishcha v'Chadam Lo Yeh Kaddish. And this is really the equals buy-in of the previous sugya. We had a machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva as to the source of the azhara. So fills in the blanks. The Gemara teaches that there's going to be an afkamina, that if someone does two different aveiros, one aveira of mishkav zachar proactively, one aveira of receiving mishkav zachar, according to Rabbi Yishmael, you chayiv shtayim, two different psukim. Rabbi Akiva on the first white line, einoi chayiv elachad lo sishkav chadahi. It's both going to be the same. It's all the same aveira. Similarly, says the Gemara, habal beima vevi beima love. Again, so there's two different aveiros. One who sleeps with an animal and one who brings the animal upon them. The same thing, says the Gemara. Amar Avavua, the different Rabbi Yishmael chayiv shtayim chad, lo sitish chavtach v'am lo yeh kadosh different Rabbi Kiva, einai chayiv elachas chavtach chada he. So it's going to be the same nafkamina in both cases. That's how Rava is going to learn. However, Abaye that is not Rava. I guess we'll just call it the Tanakama. But Abaye comes along and Abaye says no. Says Abaye on the fifth wide line, Afilu l'divi Rabbi Yishmael nami nechayv alachas. Why? Chiksev lo yeh kadesh. Begavri chiksev lo yeh kadesh is referring to men and men, not in the case of animals. Asks the Gemara el Rabbi Yishmael asar l'nishkav minolan, where we know that asar l'nishkav. Nafkale, mikol sheikh v'meim amois yumas. Emenu in l'sheikh v'tenei in l'nishkav. V'afki rachman l'nishkav l'shon. Shoichev, the Torah uses the lashon sheikh. Ma sheikh v'einesh v'hizir. Af nishkav einesh v'hizir. It includes both of them. Continues the Gemara. Let's continue. Again, we're middle of the equals button of the previous two braces. Previous two braces, which was what? Mishkav Zachar, Mishkav Behema. The Machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, whether it's two different psukim and one pasuk. Says the Gemara, similarly, Hanir Bala Zachar, Hanir Bala Behema. This is really part 3 of the Mishnah. Someone who has a male upon them or an animal upon them. Again, and it's all in one act. Two different Aveiros. Amar Avavua, Rabbi Akiva. Chayiv Shtayim, Chadim Lo Yisishtav, Chadim Lo Yisitich Chavtzchal. Different Rabbi Yishmael, now the tables are going to turn. Einai chayiv ala achas. The only going to be chayiv one. Why? Because Aidi v'Aidi v'lei yekadeshu. Both of you v'lei yekadesh. Abaye again argues by Amar lafilu divrei Rabbi Yishmael nami chayiv shtayim dechsev kol sheikh v'meima mois yumas. Meaning the sheikh have to name l'nishkav avkir achman l'nishkav v'lashain sheikh that what ma sheikh anish v'hazir av nishkav oinesh v'hazir aval abal zachar v'hevi zachar alav. Those two aveiros abal behema v'behemi alav. Then bein the Ravavua, bein the Abaye, it's going to be the same halacha. The Rabbi Yishmael chayiv shalosh, Rabbi Akiva chayiv shtayim. And that really wraps up the discussion of the two braisais, the machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva as to the makayros and 3 different nafkaminas. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up in the braisa the next year. B'siyata dishmaya.